This is the YouTube version of the Hidden Experience audio podcast. This show is hosted by Mike Cleland, and that's me, and it is available on most of the popular podcast platforms. Just search out Hidden Experience Audio. And if you want to support the show, you can find it on Patreon, as well as Buy Me a Coffee. This YouTube version has ads, but the audio version is always ad-free. And you can also join my YouTube channel here. And now the show. Audio conversation with Ingrid Honkala, recorded Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. I met Ingrid last summer at a small conference in Illinois. I think there were less than 30 attendees, and they were all women, and that meant I was the only guy at the venue. The two other speakers were Ingrid and Cheryl Costa, and Cheryl will be on this show sometime very soon. I had the privilege to hang out with both of them, and that was wonderful. After the event, the car service took us back to O'Hare Airport, and the way the flights had been scheduled, I got to talk with Ingrid for over 4 hours. We sat and drank coffee, and this was a remarkable time to really hear her story and her lifetime of experiences. Now, for this show, I didn't want Ingrid to tell her initial near-death experience. And let me tell you, that is an amazing event that happened when she was not yet even 3 years old. She has told it many times on other podcasts, and I found an excellent YouTube video where she shares it in a very complete way. And this 2-part video is linked in the show notes, and I recommend it highly. Now, even though we don't talk about her initial near-death experience, wow, we sure cover a lot. Ingrid was born in Colombia and has a PhD in marine sciences, with an emphasis in biological oceanography. She now travels the world talking about her multiple near-death experiences, and with that, her spiritual insights. She published a book in 2017, A Brightly Guided Life. This is subtitled, How a Scientist Learned to Hear Her Inner Wisdom. And we talk about her book in the interview. Now, I need to say this. Ingrid is a radiant soul, and I am not exaggerating. I am certain anyone who has met her would say the very same thing. And I want to give the listeners a heads up. In this talk, we don't shy away from addressing some deep spiritual experiences. And we talk about God and the afterlife and the realm in between lives and so much more. Now, I am personally cautious to address some of these ideas because they can so easily fall into the trappings of New Age cliches. But that doesn't represent Ingrid and this talk. She is such a grounded, thoughtful individual, and having spent all those hours in deep conversation, I am left with profound respect for her as a person and a reverence for what she has experienced. I trust her absolutely. This was a beautiful and hopeful conversation. Please enjoy. Ingrid, thank you so much for saying yes to this interview. It means so much to me.
Thank you so much, Mike, for inviting me. It means a lot to me too. So thank you.
Good. I spoke with a friend of mine on a podcast, just the last one I did, and her name is Sharon Hewitt-Rowlett, and she wrote a book on the near-death experience. And we went back and forth and we were talking, and I said that I have been listening to a lot of personal accounts of people who have had near-death experiences. And she does the same thing. She listens to those too. And we sort of laughed. And she summed it up by saying, you know, if you listen to those accounts, you don't need to go to church. Like listening to those accounts is more valuable to me than going to church. I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to you?
It makes a lot of sense to me because I think it's first-hand experience, is experiential. You know, when I was raised as Catholic, and of course I I see value in everything, because even when you have certain religion, or it's just the way of showing you there's more than the physical reality. There's something else more hidden there. So there's value in everything. But when I had my experiences, have had my, not just the near death experiences, but the mystical experiences, those profound experiences, I have had the sense of melting with the divine, to completely be in that presence of love and that presence of silence and tranquility and presence. So when you go directly to the core, if you think about all religions, what was really the core of all teachings? Go back to the core values of peace, love, silence, purity. I don't know. Is just go back to what you truly are. And I remember, Mike, I was very young. I started to, my grandmother brought me to the path of spirituality. She taught me to meditate when I was 8 years old. And I remember starting to study with her all different teachings. And she brought me into the path of, she joined first an order called the Rosicrucian Order, just to study more deeply into the scriptures. And then she joined Buddhism, Hinduism, and started to learn Kabbalah, and started to learn about the chakras and everything else. And she started to bring all these into my life. And later I learned about the Indian cultures of the Americas, and reading with them a book called the Popol Book, the Book of the People, is when I realized, even with the teachings I was receiving there, is like, wow, the core of the teachings are all the same. If we go to the very, very, very root, to say something of the teachings and what they were trying to offer, they all come from the same values: knowledge, peace, purity, love, happiness, bliss, power. That inner power, that inner connection. So it's like, at the end of the day, when you hear the experiences of people that have had near death experiences, is what they're talking about. Going back to the root, going back to experiencing that type of connection firsthand. Like when we think about religion, what is actually the root of that word? Religare, reunite, get together, connect. These near-death experiences bring us to reconnect and remember who we truly are, and reconnect with the divine, with God. See, even at the beginning, we might not know the word God. The way it happened to me, I was only 2 years old. I didn't know the word God, or I didn't know the meaning of God. But later, when the more I integrated and understood, came to the place of clarity to understand my experience, is when I said, oh, I understand what happened. I melted with God. I was in the arms of God, and I felt the sense of, how would you say it, like dissolving. Like when a little baby's in the arms of the mother or the father, and the baby forgets that he's even has a self, and is completely dissolved in the arms of the father and the mother. That's the experience I had. So I think so. When you listen to these experiences, you're completely in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read a beautiful book called Jesus and Buddha as Brothers. I think that's the title of it. And it just compared and contrasted their messages and how exactly similar they were in some ways. And that was really helpful for me.
Yes.
We had a chance to hang out for a weekend last summer, and it was totally fun. It was at a small little conference, and you and I got to talk a lot, and you spoke so much about the beings of light.
Yes.
And tell me about your relationship with the beings of light and how they have informed you and helped you.
Yes, this relationship came to be after my first near-death experience. I was close to 3 years old, and I, uh, I f- in my feeling was that their presence happened for the first time during that near-death experience. I didn't get to see them or have clarity of that, but I did feel that I was not alone, that I was back home. And that sense of home is that sense of that you are definitely not alone. Is I felt like I was received, and that I was. It was again that sense of melting with the divine. Then later, after the near death, I started to have what we know today as out of body experiences, and it was in these, let's call it, journeys that I started to see what I describe as beings of light, because literally that's how I saw them. And I was 3 years old, and it went all the way until I was 4 years old. That at the beginning I would just see like lights, like beaming everywhere, just like they were like starlight figures. And I would go into these journeys, and I wanted to remain there, because every time I was in this realm, it was like the realm of the light I experienced when I died. And it was in one of these journeys that one of these beings that was like shining in intense gold shaped itself into a human form. And it's like, it showed me like we are the same. And it's when I had that clarity, like we're like the same thing, because I also realized myself as a being of light when I had my first near-death experience. And then at this moment, when this being shaped into a human form, it touched me in the head, in the forehead. And it's when I said, you are a being of light. And from that, I was in that moment having one of those out of body experiences. And I wanted to sleep all the time, Mike. So I could not be, of course, the child that is left forever. So not long after this, one day I was taking a shower, and is when I saw the first being of light appearing in the bathroom. It was an intense blue light. And is when I said, now they are here. And I was going through a really hard time in my life, because when I came back from my near-death experience, I did not feel a sense of connection with my body, with my name, with my persona. I felt when I came back, I would look at myself, Mike, and I said, I'm not this child. I am not this. This is not my name. Imagine you experiencing yourself as soul, as light. And now you're back in this body, and I'm realizing I am not this. And I will look at my parents and said, that's not my parents. I felt them as my equal. So I became very rebellious. I had experienced oneness. And for me, they were my equal. So why do I have to listen to these people? And I stopped at the time eating, and I became rebellious. I was angry because I didn't want to be here. So I put an analogy. Imagine that during my near-death experience is like the child is in an amusement park having all the fun in the world. And now you say, we have to go back. When I came back into the body, I was very angry. And I reached the point that I almost, like, I didn't even want to be touched. So when I started to have these out-of-body experiences and seeing beings of light, imagine I started to, this is my home. This is really my home. But of course, I could not be the child that was sleeping forever. So that balance of seeing now beings of light here, and the physical reality was very important. And that brought me many, many, many years later to understand a teaching. And it was when I started to see the beings of light here in the physical reality, I started to feel the sense of home here too. And the sense, now I can play with my sisters. Now I can eat. Now I'm not alone. They are here. And then is when I understood years later that what that was trying to show me is that home was not a place. Because I wanted to go somewhere. Home was not a place, it's a state of being. And then now, although at the beginning the beings of light didn't say anything, it's just their presence, Mike, made me feel love and that I was not alone. And again, that sense of home. And then I started to talk to my sisters and relate and feel more like I belong here too.
Did they show up on purpose, do you feel, like for that reason, to give you that grounding, to feel at home just in your physical realm? Do you feel that they did that for you on purpose?
I think so. I think that I'm clear about the pre-plan. And there's a couple of things that happen. One, after my near death, I always say to people, because say, how can you remember if you were so young? And then I said, it's like the door for me never closed. It's like the door never closed. And then years later, I also received the teaching, Ingrid, of course, the doors never close because there are no doors. What we call the kingdom of heaven, God, the light of awareness, the light of consciousness, whatever we want to call it, source is here for us always. So, sorry about my dogs barking.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
So what happened for me from the very beginning was that door remained open. And the reason why we close the door is because of beliefs, because of, since we're very little and our parents are showing us the outer reality, we change our focus of attention. Then it comes conditioning, then it comes fear, then it comes experiences, whatever it is, and we start closing or creating barriers, creating layers, creating doors. But for me, it's like that door never closed and there was no layering at the moment. So what happened is that when people ask me, do you summon the beings of light or they summon you? I said, no, it's not like that. What happened is that what I call, or when I name pre-plan, is that I know that I meant to remember faster. I meant to keep that door open and remember faster who I am. But in terms of beings of light, they're always here for all of us, always. Imagine like we're like a radio, or we're like a computer. All the waves of radio, TV, internet, everything is here and now. But where is that we have our dial? Where is that we have our antenna located? So if we don't have it in the frequency that allow us to connect, then it's not going to happen, even though they're all here. Even though we can have all the radio waves happening right here, I don't have a radio that is on and is in the dial where I want to listen certain music, I cannot hear it. So that's what happened for me. It's like, that's what we say when we see children, they are functioning in a way, when we're even thinking about the brain waves, they're functioning in a state where they're open, where they're connected. And we talk to children and many are like, oh, what a fascinating world. Or the child is having an imaginary friend, or he is fantasizing, or in reality, is it true? Or the child is actually connected and seeing all these things. So that's how the world was for me. The door remained open and I was able to interact with the spirit world and with the non-physical world and the higher levels of reality, and with that realm of the light that is when I was having these out of body experiences, Mike, I have seen colors I have never seen here. Vibrations I have never experienced here, movements, sounds. How can you explain what you've never seen here? You cannot. So it is really hard for people. You have probably heard in many of the experiences that have had near-death experiences to really convey with words the experience in its totality, because there's many things. How can I bring you to see a color you've never seen or a sound you have never heard? And for me, I have had experiences where I call it nothingness. That place of complete, pure, and absolute presence, where there's not even words, or there's not even meaning, there's not even way to describe it. You can only experience it. So, yeah, when this door stays open, and on top of that, my mother, I started to see what we also call spirits later. So it was that, like, again, is that door was open, and my mother taught me to pray, and my grandmother to meditate. So it was how you continuously could keep this door open. When my grandmother, Mike, and maybe we can later talk about that, like when she taught me to meditate when I was 8, and she brought the Om to my awareness, and I repeated the Om. I woke up that very night at sometime in the middle of the night with the whole house shaking. And later I understood that movement and the sound that I was experiencing, like kind of like some kind of roaring sound, was what is called as Kundalini awakening.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't know names or nothing. And I came to understand and integrate and have some clarity about all these experiences many, many years later. Yeah. So,
Here, let me ask one question. How do you say beings of light in Spanish?
seres de luz.
Say that one more time.
Seres de luz.
Okay. If you want to use that term for the rest of the interview, you can. Well, I think everyone will catch it right up. So
That's beautiful. Yeah. So imagine, Mike, like having this interaction with these beings, and like I said to you at the beginning, they didn't talk, but their presence, Mike, and I could, they carry, again, once you open your spiritual senses, that is what people call the clairs, clairvoyance, clairsentience, all this stuff. I was able to smell also, even like flowers. It was the beings of light are here. When they will come in numbers, it's like like I said, they always here, but not always all the presence are here. And I have the chance to meet many, many different beings of light, and you can smell, and I could feel their presence, and I could. It was hearing that is like But I, like I said at the beginning, I could not hear them, but I could sense them, I could smell them, I could see them. And the day I heard them for the first time was when I threw a big tantrum, because I did not feel attachment to my persona or to my name. Imagine, I am in my being. I am. Today again, I can put name to this, but I am light. I am soul. I'm not this body. I'm not this.
And how old were you?
Oh gosh, I was so little, 3, 4.
Oh my word. Okay. Keep going.
Yes. And then when I started to hear them, I was 4 years old. And then is when I threw a big tantrum, because I felt the sense that this was not my name. And then when people kept calling me Ingrid, I would get aggravated. Like, that's not my name. And one evening they were calling me for dinner, Ingrid. And I'm like, gosh. And then the lady came, and then she's like, Ingrid, we're calling you for dinner. And I said, don't call me like that. That's not my name. And she said, how should we call you? What is your name? And I say, I do not need one. So this is very important, Mike, because people later in life, they ask me, what is the name of your guardian angel? Or what is the name of this? Or what is the name of that? Or how they look like. Starting from the beginning, I never needed names.
Mm-hmm.
I never needed form. See, I like I said to you, I wasn't even attached to the sense, oh, I have this form. So for me, the formless, nameless was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So this happened with this experience with my name. When I said, I do not need one, they sent me to bed that night. And it's when I heard for the first time voice. And it was a being of light. The being of light said to me, it's going to take time for them to understand that names are not needed in the realm of the light. Oh, I felt so relief. And they said, like you already know. So it was that clarity that labels are not needed. We're just going to the source. We're just going to the essence that we are. And later in my life, I kept meeting many beings of light, and sometimes being surrounded by many, many of them. And even though I didn't see form, I knew who was talking to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was all these mainly telepathy, and I knew who was talking. And so, and again, like later I had to understand, of course. And over time I had to learn to ground Mike, and it was hard, and understand, of course, names are needed in our human experience, and they're beautiful and they carry frequency and whatever else. But at that moment of my life, it was a really difficult time for me, because many times I will wake up or get up in the morning and said, I think that this was a dream. That this was, I said, well, what is this dream that I'm dreaming? And I wanted to just go back to the essence of Ingrid.
Yeah. That sense of home.
Yes. So the journey was, we could say, amazingly beautiful and very difficult at the same time. Because of that, I felt the sense I didn't fit. I felt the sense that I did not belong here. I felt the sense of feeling like complete alien. But being so light, being here, and their presence helped a lot, helped incredibly. And one thing, before we move forward, people ask me, how you know these beings are good? How you know, people have the fear to the unknown, and they're like, how you know that they're not like some evil thing or some bad entities or something? And I have met many beings of light, like many we can talk about, but mainly the guidance I received since I was a little child came from beings that always guided me to look within. I said, if you meet any teacher, any guide, any master, any guru in the physical realm or the spiritual realm that said, I am your teacher, I am your guru, you have to follow me, I say, run and run fast. Yeah. But if you meet any being in any realm that tells you, look within, the truth is within yourself. You are the guru of your own temple. Connect with the truth that you are. That is a true teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been my experience. Since I was little, the beings of light said to me, do not just listen blindly to what we say. Follow the guidance, but experience yourself. Experience things yourself. So that was very, very, very important, because it was never listen blindly to what we say. It was never like that.
Yeah.
And many times I didn't follow the guidance. I was resistant, and I was like, okay, why do I have to do what you say? Okay, That's the free will. See, the guidance is there. We don't want to, because sometimes there was a person that wanted, it was the little getting caught in some idea, because she would say to me that the beings of light are telling you what to do. And I was saying, no, they were offering guidance. Like I say, like you have a road map, but they're not telling me to follow it. If I don't want it, I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
So they were not telling me what to do. They were offering guidance like a teacher, like, okay, here is the math class or the science class or whatever. But if you don't want to learn it, that's up to you. If you don't want to follow the guidance, that's up to you. So that's how it always worked for me. And my free will was always available, always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In your book, A Brightly Guided Life, that was published in 2017, and that book begins with your near-death experience as a little child.
Yeah.
And since the book's publication, you've had another near-death experience.
Yes, I have had 2 more, actually, Mike.
2 more?
Yes.
Since the book was published?
No, one is written in the book, but at the time, I was still processing my experiences.
That was the motorcycle?
Yes.
Okay, I had that written down and I took it out because I was like, that seems more like, the way you describe it was more like an out-of-body event.
Yes.
But keep going. Go ahead and...
Yes, I got to, because I didn't know, Mike. And at the time when I wrote the book, people say it's impossible to have more than 2 near-death experiences. What are you talking about? You cannot write about it. So maybe someday I have to edit the book because it was, and I thought, but I had that experience. But I just listened to what people told me out there, and I was like, okay, let's just write it as an out-of-body experience. But that was actually an experience where I crashed in this bike, and even before I touched the ground, I was already out of the body.
I've heard this kind of thing many times. Yeah.
Exactly. So the more I was able to learn about the experience and go deeper, it's like, this was a near-death experience. Like, again, I was just in the idea that you could not have more than one. And guess what, Mike? Even in my last near-death, the beings of light show me, revealed to me. I don't even talk about this one much because it's not one. I don't remember it. That's why I don't talk about it. But they show me even another experience I had when I was an infant. And I went to validate this experience with my father because he was the one that witnessed it, and it's a true story too, or a true event. So it's like, oh my God, like what? So yeah, the second one happened that I remember happened in a motorcycle accident. And when, like I said to you, I fell from the bike, or the bike fell, and I was not wearing a helmet, and I hit the ground with my bare head. But like I said to you, is when I realized pain is in the body. Of course, pain belongs to the body and the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
But I also say, depending how identify you with your body. If someone is very identified with the body, is going to carry certain level of pain, but it's the pain that belongs to the psyche. Like the mental and emotional attachment to that sense of, I'm feeling something, but then is the realization, no, actually not. The body is there. But in my experience, I was already standing in the middle of the road. And what was the most incredible thing of all, Mike? No fear at all.
Mm-hmm. I've heard this many times, yeah.
Not emotion whatsoever, in the sense of nothing troublesome or difficult, or that it should not be happening. Nothing. It was the sense again like, oh, I'm home. I'm ready to go home. Okay. Like very much like, where do I have to go? I'm ready. And again, that sense of openness and expansion and light. This is something that you might probably hear when people have more than one near death. And in my case, the first one was all the story around, all the events around, all the things that happening. I did this, I did that. The other two were directly to the light. Like, it wasn't necessary all the rest of the stuff around. It was okay, you already you already know this, you're already here. Like, you don't need all this transition. It's like I was directly there. And then I'm standing in the middle of the light, the road completely surrounded by light. And it's when I was picked from the road, from the scene in the accident. And I realized that it's when the fear came, because I realized why I cannot see someone now. I feel now that I am somebody's touching this body, but I cannot see the person. And then when I touched my face, I realized I could not see the person because I was blind. That's when the fear came with all his power, Mike, because it's when now the mind, and you're like, I don't want, of course, everything, but no blind. What? And then I was taken to the hospital, and it was in the hospital that I started to recover my vision. I had such a head trauma that my optical nerve, I guess, disconnected, and I had like some swelling in the brain. So it took some time for me to recover my vision completely. At the beginning, it was like a tunnel vision. And so it when the doctor came to me, and I was riding the motorcycle with somebody else. He was sitting at the back. Nothing really major happened to him. And we were in the room, and the doctor he said, yeah, you definitely lost your vision the moment your head hit the ground. And it's when I said, I don't think so. Because I'm standing in the middle of the road and I'm seeing the light. I'm seeing light everywhere. And then it's when my friend said, Ingrid, that's not possible. Because the place where the accident happened was pitch black. There was no lights. It was at night. So there's not possible that you could have seen light. And it's when, Mike, it was that clear realization. Of course, I saw the light, but with the eyes of my soul. Because this was, what was the evidence and the proof in this experience? That physically I was blinded. So I could not have seen that light with my physical eyes. So this is just so incredible how, of course, I was seeing with the eyes of my soul. And the other thing is like, this when my friend said, you never stood up. You never stood up. So is when I realized, yeah, I had spent some time again out of my body in the realm of the light. So that was with that second experience.
And what happened in the more recent one? This was in the hospital. You were having an operation?
Yes. So the last experience came with a warning. Like I knew something was going to happen, like days before. It was that knowing that something was going to happen. And I received the message that direct, I will go to that experience, but I want to also bring something else, Mike, is that through time, my relationship with what I call beings of light and God have been changing. Say that at the beginning, when you go to school, you first meet your teachers from kindergarten, first grade, second grade. So the evolution for me with the beings of light have changed too. So at the beginning, I was meeting some teachers, and over time, my connection with God has become direct. Like is this sense of I receive teachings, I feel directly from the source. And before I had this near death experience, I had a moment of complete overwhelmed. One night I went to bed with feeling the sense of absolute worry. And I was I didn't know why. And I am an empath, and I thought maybe I'm feeling someone's emotions because there was no reason for me to feel that way. I was doing good. And then I did my meditation, my practices. I have these different mindfulness practices where I work with my emotions, and I realized this is not going away. I barely went to sleep, woke up 3 a.m, and when I woke up, the worry was such that I was even having tachycardia. And then again, I went into my practice, and at that moment in which I went into this deep meditation, I heard the voice that says, "Do you trust me?" And that was that direct. Why do I know is that direct connection with God? Because it's the feeling I had when I had my first near-death experience. When I went into that space of complete dissolving with this called totality, whole, divine, the Father, and then Father, Mother, Spirit. So the same thing I felt there. It was that voice that said, "Do you trust me?" And the moment I say, "Yes, I do," not even, no hesitation, nothing, complete trust, because it's that light, Mike, then is when the tachycardia was gone, the fear was gone, the worry was gone. Everything was gone, Mike. And I entered into the state of complete peace. Peace, silence. Like when you've been carrying a very heavy backpack and you take it out of your shoulders and you feel that sense of relief, like, and at that moment I heard the words that says, "You are in sync with God." And I was in this state of complete, in the Hindu scriptures, I have here the word samadhi. So you enter in that state of oneness. Even when I woke up in the morning, I look at my hands and I'm like, whoa, these are the hands of God. But I wasn't thinking Ingrid hands. I'm thinking the presence of God is everywhere. Everywhere. I water the plants, and everywhere I just could only see light. And then days later, I had a car accident. And that car accident brought me to need to have this surgery, because this was a surgery I was avoiding. I didn't want this surgery, but that was, we were treating this, what was happening to me with hormone therapy. I had this big problem with my uterus, with inflammation and a lot of bleeding. And then I was trying to, and the doctor said, you probably need surgery. And I didn't want it. I thought I can heal. But I guess some things in life need to happen, Mike. It's just part of the process. I don't know this. And then the car accident brought me to have bleeding that lasted for 15 days. And now I needed this surgery. But I was also guided to the right doctor, because this doctor, I know for sure the other doctor I had before, because she was my doctor for years, she would not have listened to me. But then at the hospital, when we were preparing for this surgery, I also knew something was going to happen during the surgery. And I told the doctor, "You have to monitor my blood pressure. You have to." And then I was so adamant that she called the anesthesiologist. And they were all like meeting with me, and I said, "You have to monitor my blood pressure." And then they're like, okay. Then now they were really paying attention to my blood pressure throughout the surgery. And it's supposed to be not a very difficult procedure. And during the procedure, my blood pressure dropped to the ground. And I went into hypothermia. And when this is happening, Mike, again, like in the motorcycle accident, I went directly to the light. And I am in the light. And this was the first time, Mike, from the other experiences, that I was asked if I wanted to stay or I wanted to go. Usually people say that they were asked to come back. They're like, oh, I don't want to go back or whatever else. The two first experiences I had, I wasn't asked anything. I said I would just kick back. It was nobody asked me anything. And in this, imagine now I'm hearing, you want to stay or you want to go. The moment I heard the words, you want to stay, it was again that sense of like, of course I want to stay. This is heaven. It felt incredibly, amazingly good. I would not even, I could even mention you the best trip you've done in your life, the best retreat you have stayed, the best vacation, and nothing will compare with this.
Mm-hmm.
You are in a state of bliss. And then when I heard the words, oh, you want to go back. It's when I said, wait a minute. I said, if God is everything, if God is everywhere, if the presence of God for me is absolutely everywhere, if I'm already this light, if I am a being of light, Mike, I said, where is here and where is there? I said, there is no here and there is not there. And the first thing that crossed my mind was, the first thought after that was, keep me where I can serve God the most. So this experience for me completely validated that I had experiencing since I was a child. Home is not a place, it's a state of being. Is that clarity? You always have been home. You always have been a soul just having a human experience. You always have had that door of connection with your father, mother in heaven, with source, with the light of consciousness. Presence is always there. And this is another incredible thing when I have had this kind of experience, because when I repeatedly, I have had what I named to you like these kind of samadhi experiences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When this happened during the near death, is that a state of complete connection, oneness. Is a moment where there's no judgment at all. Let my dog talk.
I hear him. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that moment where you're like, there's no judgment, there's only presence. You're in that state of silence, that state of connection, communion. You're not thinking about, it even took me a while to share this with my husband or my family, because I felt a little bit like, how can I tell them that when I was in that state of being, I didn't think about them. I didn't think about them in the sense of emotional attachment. At that moment, I was in the state of knowing that if I came back or not, it was irrelevant. It was the sense of everything is perfect. Everything is in perfect order. If I don't come back, my son has the experiences that he needs to have. My son will have the experiences that he needs to have. So I did not have emotional attachment to anything or anybody. So the moment that happened was when I said, keep me where I can serve God the most. Only at that moment is when I started to think about my son, my husband, my family, and emotional attachment happened that anchored me back and brought me back to earth, to say it this way, because otherwise I didn't feel that there was nothing that could anchor me here.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I just felt okay. but first than anything, was that sense of God Allow me to serve. Keep me in service. I want to serve. And just quick an experience I have lately, it was only a couple of weeks ago or a month ago or something. I was in meditation, and I was thinking that about service. I'm thinking, oh, I serve God. I serve God. And it's when I received that clear message that came from source. And God said to me, you do not serve me. So it was that clarity. You do not serve God. God doesn't need to be served. God is the ultimate bestower. God doesn't need anything. So the message I got, you do not serve God. Your service itself. You are service itself. It's like, wow, that was absolutely beautiful. There was a moment when we think in terms of service, or when people think about words like peace, love, happiness, calmness, joy. Long ago, I received the clarity about what we call emotions. And the beings of light said to me at the time, they said, those are not emotions. Those are universal principles.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very big difference. See, so even that sense of service is a universal principle, the seed of service. See, is the seed that come out and flower once you're ready for it. Once you have become that altruistic being, and at the end, the ultimate giver, the ultimate service comes from the person that is present. When you give in present, when you listen in presence, when you are truly present, it's when you become that ultimate giver, when you're giving for the sake of giving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that is with that sense of do the work, but don't think you're even doing it for anybody. Do it because it is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from you. It's the nature that you are. It flows from within. It's when you are really becoming that being at the image and likeness of the Creator. You becoming also a bestower. See, that is the work of the altruistic being. Little by little, look, you are made at the image and likeness of God. And it's just remembering that you are that extension, you are that light, you are soul. Yeah.
When we spoke, I think it was at the airport in Chicago, you told me a story that happened recently about seeing a wolf with your husband from a car.
Yeah.
Please tell that. I want to hear that again, because that was really, that to me felt more like something out of the core of my research, which is looking at these paranormal aspects that surround UFO contact. And it struck me how similar that story felt to other accounts I've researched.
Oh, yes, I'm glad that I mentioned that story to you, because it's not something I really share much, because I guess it has to be with someone that is into these kind of experiences, because that's not the first being I have seen that it seems like out of this world. But yeah, we were driving with my husband. It was a country road, so just this very dark country road in the middle of nowhere. And then in the horizon, we saw the bright eyes, and I just thought that it was a deer or some other animal. And I just asked him to slow down the car, because there's a lot of recounts of accidents in these roads hitting deer or other animals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But this was a very tall one, so I just thought it was a deer. Could have been a cow too, who knows? But at the moment I said, slow down, there's and we were three in the car. It was my husband, my son, and I. And then at that moment, when he pretty much almost had to stop the car because the animal wasn't moving out of the road. It was passing the road pretty slow, and he was looking at us, Mike. And the moment that we slow almost to stop the car, we realized that the animal that was crossing the road was a wolf. And for that area, for Mississippi, it was very strange, because it wasn't like, there's a lot of, how you call coyote? It's a small.
Coyote, yeah.
Yeah, so that's common in the area, and maybe foxes, or maybe just animals that are smaller. But this was a full grown big wolf. I could not believe my eyes. And if it was just me looking at the animal, I would have been, maybe I lost my mind or I'm confused. But it was three of us looking at this animal, walking slow, Mike, looking at us and crossing the road. And then it went into just the fields and disappeared there. And the three of us were like, did we see what we were like in awe? How is this animal? And the size of it, Mike, it was pretty big, to the point that I just thought it was like a deer or something. And it was a big, full grown wolf. So I don't know. You tell me what you think about this, because I am pretty curious.
What were your emotions in the moment?
Surprise, deep surprise. Like, I was not expecting to see an animal like that, and a surprise. And I don't know. I don't know if I would not use the word fear, but it was a deep surprise. I just was not expecting.
When we spoke at the airport, you said your husband was quite shaken by this experience.
Oh, he was. And yes, because he could not, like, imagine seeing an animal like this in the middle of this country road in Mississippi. We didn't know we never thought there would be wolves in that area, starting from there. But also the size.
I would say there aren't wolves, yeah.
I was just, like my jaw just dropped. Like, did we see what we see? Is this real? Did we really see this animal? Like, again, if it wasn't that three pair of eyes were seeing this, I would not have, like, really believed what we were seeing. Yeah.
And your husband, he does work, or he did work with, like, special forces and war zones.
Yes.
That struck me, that he was shaken at something, that was seen in the headlights of a car.
Because, you know why, Mick? Because it did not go away like that, Mike. It looked at us like it did not really, like, other animal would run fast or would just move out of the way, or no, it was slowly and looking at us. I think that he went into state of reactivity, like, because the animal was really looking at us and, like, in a slow way crossing the road, like you almost could not. It was like, is there an intention of this animal to jump on the car? It was intimidating. Maybe that's probably the sense.
Yeah. Doing this kind of research, what you're describing doesn't seem like a normal event. It seems more like a paranormal event. And it feels like you were presented with an archetype. I mean, the animal of wolf surely exists, but I feel strongly that a wolf of that size would be impossible in a place like Mississippi.
I think so.
And then the emotional reaction and the way it moved. And so it feels like you were experiencing an archetype, or let's say a sort of dream symbolism that welled up in real life. What that may or may not imply is very difficult to know. That would be a personal thing, but it feels like you were presented with an unbelievable story. There's three witnesses, all who can corroborate what was seen.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, like a believable set of witnesses telling an unbelievable story is woven into the UFO lore and the lore of the paranormal. So that's how it feels to me.
Yeah, and why did it come? I don't know. I don't have idea why.
I don't either. Yeah. So, but it did, and like an unremembered dream, or like a dream that's confusing, you may never quite get the answer, but it's somehow playing its role in your subconscious. It's playing a role even if you cannot identify what that role might be, or the meaning. I mean, the meaning is happening whether you want it to or not, or whether you can point a finger to what that meaning might be. So that's my sense.
Yeah, yeah, and Mike, this is not the first time I see animals or I have experience with animals that play a role in my life. I can share with you a story about a dog, actually. That when I was a child, we lived in a neighborhood in Colombia. It was a time where a lot of bombings were happening. Colombia has been a country of war, internal war for so many years, one type of war or another. This was more the time of rebels and time of narco traffickers and all kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in a neighborhood that also wasn't the safest when I was growing up. And then there was a distance from the house to the place where we have to catch the school bus. And then my mom always she had to go work early, so she will send us with the maid and sometimes by ourselves. So it was kind of like always a little nervous to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
walk this couple of blocks to get to the bus stop. And one morning I had to be, let me think, I don't know if I was probably maybe 10 years old, Mike. And then I went to the front door, opened the door, and there was a dog sitting there at the door. And then I'm like, whoa, it was a big dog. And then the dog had the shape of a diamond in his forehead. Reason why we call him Diamond, and his body was all a yellow, gold color, his hair. And then he had this diamond shape in his forehead. So we call him Diamond. The dog never came in the house, but the dog will come every single morning to the door, and we will give him, I will have bread or something from my breakfast, and the dog will walk with us to the bus stop, wait for us there. I don't know what he will do during the day, but when we arrive every afternoon, the bus will drop us there. The dog was there waiting for us, and the dog will walk with us to the house. And this happened for all the years in that school that we needed this dog. Again, he never came inside the house. He would not go in the house. And every time he will walk us home, he will go walk away. So we always have a treat for him coming from school, something for the dog. And this was an incredible, incredible experience. And nobody could come close to us when we were with this dog.
Mm.
And at the end of the years when we didn't go to this school anymore, the dog disappeared. The dog, and you don't imagine the suffering for us, because we never knew what happened to him. He just never came back. And it was like, what happened to Diamante? What happened to Diamante Diamond? And it was heartbreaking because he never came back anymore. But it was like we went into like vacation. We thought he will come back, and he never did. So this dog was with us for the years that we needed him.
Wow. And I think the role of animals is something that's well understood in other cultures, and we fictionalize the role of animals in our fairy tales and in our folklore, yet these real life events really do happen. And that's sort of at the core of my owl research too, that these real events are happening for real people. Yeah.
And if it wasn't that the dog wasn't walking just with me, we were like three of us, and sometimes the maid was with the dog was all my parents. Everybody knew Diamante.
Yeah.
So this dog played this role in our lives for like 5-6 years,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then he went away.
I've heard many stories quite similar to that have to do with people who have had UFO contact. It's remarkable, the overlapping of this. We've been at it for a little over an hour. I have one final question.
Yes.
This just raced by. Oh my word, the time just raced by. So, given all your experiences, you have touched that other realm beyond our physical life here. You've touched that eternal realm. And I'm at a point now where I see that reincarnation or there's a point between lives where people can make choices and make decisions on what they do next. And so I'm assuming there was a point before you incarnated here where you had to make some decisions. So what my question is, did you volunteer for this role, the role you're playing right now, which I feel is an important role? Did you volunteer for that role before you arrived here in this realm, in this physical realm?
Yes, I did, Mike. And all of us do. We all, that's part of our pre-plan and how we are all acting. And at the end of the day, I always say all of us are here to show each other the big picture. So imagine there's a tapestry, a universal tapestry, and each one of us is an essential thread in that tapestry. Without you, the tapestry is not completed. So all of us are essential in remembering and realizing the big picture. And yes, we volunteer and we pre-plan. And this is the other thing. People think that you pre-plan and it stops there. No, we are co-creating all the time, Mike. We are, but it all depends. If we start playing a role, the time works in the horizontal and in the vertical. There was a moment that I asked the being, so like, how is it possible to predict the future? And they said to me, they said, easy. And I said, like, what, easy? And they said, yes, because humans and humanity are very predictable. And they said to me, why do you think that you work with oceanographic models? Yeah, that was part of the fun, but not just because of the models, it's to show you that everything is like mathematics. When you say the hurricane is coming or something like that, and you run a numerical model, you can, based on your numbers and the predictability of this storm, I could go here, here, and there. Same thing with humans. The more habitual you are, the more predictable you become. The more identified you are with your body, what is called body conscious, the more identified you are and the more habitual you become, then you stop being like the co-creator that you are. It's when the beings also said to me, Ingrid, you think that people think? You think that you're thinking? And I said, of course we're thinking. We're thinking all the time. And they said, no, you're not truly using the power of thinking as it was given to the human beings. What you're doing is that staying, or let's say 98% of the time, instead of really using the true thinking of the universe, you're trapped in memories. We humans are trapped in memories, the same old same, the same past, the same, and creating worries for a future that don't even exist based on past experiences. So most of the time we're just repeating the same. We're trapped in patterns, we're trapped in habits. So when this happens, we become very predictable and we work in the horizontal. But the moment that you start disidentifying from the narrative in your mind and from the world of things that perish. All these ends is like, and you go and you reconnect with the truth that you are, with the eternal being that you are, with that knowing I am soul, and you start having self consciousness, then now you become a co-creator. We are all creators. Why I say co-creator? Because we don't act alone. We all in reality working together. And even if we don't have a way to remember that we are multidimensional beings, and that, this is funny because people think that even though it's our, call it spirit or our soul having a human experience, this is, the body is just the tail of the soul. We are much more than this. There was a day that I woke up in my room and I just realized, whoa, I could not even fit in the room, Mike. I was enormous. And it's when I heard the words grandioso. See, so imagine the analogy of the ocean and the wave. We are the entire ocean and we think we're just the wave. So it's like, so it's start just remembering that you are that totality. And in that remembrance, then you become the creator of your reality and not the puppet of your reality. If you identify with the impermanent, if you identify just with your body, with the narrative in your mind, which is impermanent too, you become the puppet of your reality. Your narrative is moving you. That's why when people say, Ingrid, free will or destiny, I say both. If you are completely trapped in the narrative of your mind, then it's a destiny. You're working in the horizontal. But if you, what is free will? Is the moment that you decide to be present, connect with the truth that you are, disidentify from the narrative, and connect with the true thinking of the universe, with the light of the creator, with the light that you are. And then now you're like, it's like you cut the horizontal like a cheese. And at that moment, you keep co-creating. See, if people think it's just the pre-plan and now you have to carry that like written in stone. No, it's like when you pick to go to college and you say, I'm going to go study medicine, to say whatever. And then, yeah, maybe you pick that career and that's the trend you're going to follow. But how long are you going to take? How many classes are you going to take? How many years? Whatever different courses or classes you pick. See, that is the part where you're now making your decisions. But talking in terms of free will, when people say that they have free will because they pick the clothes that they wear, they pick the food that they eat, they pick whatever, like even the career that you pick, I said, no, that's not free will, that's free choice. Because guess what? The clothes that you wear, the food that you eat, even the career that you pick, sometimes even the person you marry with, is all conditioned by your culture.
Sure.
All conditioned. The only moment you truly applying free will is when you become present. When you're trapped in the narrative, I call it the cul-de-sac of suffering, and you decide to stop and say, what is this for? That's why it's called the light of awareness. You become aware, you pause, you ask, is the inquiry, is the, what am I doing? What is this for? What is this trying to show me? You start working in the vertical. You become the co-creator of your reality. At that moment, it's like, I want to give this a step towards clarity, towards understanding, towards knowledge, towards growth, evolution, whatever it is, peeling layers. So that is that clarity that we are co-creating as we go. And every time you pick yourself, I said, nobody's choosing us like, oh, I choose you. No, you pick, you make the effort and you become who I want to be. A victim. You know, the beings of light show me like two V's. Anytime in your life you can pick victory or victim, victory or victim. And depending where you are, you're a puppet or you're a creator. So you keep creating as you go, keep creating as you go, keep evolving and keep becoming that being. If I am a being of light, I'm sharing my light with the world. You know, to end, my people ask me, what is purpose? What is my purpose? What am I doing here? Then I ask God, I said, what is mission and what is purpose and what is our purpose and what is our mission? And the clarity that came to me, your only true purpose, Mike, our true purpose is to remember that you are the light, that you are the light of consciousness, that you are soul. And your mission is to shine that light in whatever you do. See, because people say that now I remember my true nature. Should I abandon my husband, my children, my job? No. Shine that light wherever you are. That's your mission. Even if you're a doctor, a nurse, a mom, a teacher, shine that light. If maybe due to vibrational frequency, because now you became more elevated, more connected, there's things you don't need in your path, they will fall away. That's a different thing. Just shine your light. Remember who you are. Remember who your Father in heaven is, or Mother, Father, Source, consciousness. And remember who you are. And then you're set. And shine that light wherever you are. And that's it.
Can I meet your dog?
Yes.
I saw his tail at one point.
Brutus, come on, boy. He was abandoned, actually. He came to us. Mike, he came to us literally. And when he saw my husband, he was mistreated. He was abandoned. And when he came to my husband, he dropped. And he was dropped in his feet. And he looked like a little...
there he is. I saw his tail at one point. And when you were talking, I saw his tail wiggle by behind you.
And he looked scary for the people, but he's the most loving thing.
Oh.
Look at he is Brutus. Say hi.
Hi there.
So we have two rescues. They both found us. They both came to us. So.
Oh, that's so sweet. Good.
Now they're spoiled rotten.
Yeah.
Yay.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, Mike, it's been amazing. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Good. I have an experience. I just did one little thing here. I have an experience that I almost never talk about. I don't think I've ever shared it publicly. I might have. I don't remember. But I did a hypnosis session in 2017. And I am very cautious to trust fully what emerges from hypnosis. But I had an experience of the hypnotherapist said, just go where you need to go. And I saw myself riding my bicycle home in the dark, which I did often in this little town I lived in. I lived in this beautiful town in the mountains. And I rode to my cabin in the dark. And I had a little light on the front of the bike and everything. And then I walked into the house. And the house, this would have been probably about 2006 or somewhere in there. And then I walked in the house, and it felt exactly like my house felt. The darkness and the way the kitchen was lit. And I walked in the kitchen, and I have no memory of this in real life, but this is what emerged in hypnosis. There was a gray being, like a gray alien with the bald head and the big black eyes and a skinny body, standing in the kitchen. And I felt no fear. And it said to me telepathically, it said, the thing you agreed to, the thing that you had agreed to, it's starting now.
Oh.
And that was,
Yeah.
if it didn't happen, it's metaphoric of exactly where I was in my life. Oops, it was exactly where I was in my life when everything started to change in my life, and I had to, at first I fought it, and then I realized fighting it wasn't working. I had to just kind of go with the flow. And now I am this person that writes books and does podcasts and talks publicly about these experiences. So, and that was kind of the reason I asked you the question about if you felt like you were playing a role here, and you used the word pre-plan, and I knew just what you meant when you said that earlier in the talk here. So
yes, and for me, in a way, was kind of the same. Like I reached the moment where I knew I had to come and work with the plan, like seriously, because at the beginning I was asked when I was 19 years old if I was ready, if I was going to teach that, if I was ready to be a teacher, and I said no, I don't want to teach anything. So at 9 years old, I said to the beings of light that I wanted to do my own thing, but I knew in my contract was written that I was going to do what I'm doing. But yeah, it was at the moment it was I needed to ground. If I didn't ground the way I did, I don't think I could be working with people the way I am working with them. Because after I at that moment disconnected with the beings of light at the age of 19, I had many sufferings happen in my life, and I went through a really hard time of having many. You know how pictured my imagine that for the first 19 years I was walking in a room with the lights on. And if you're walking in a room with the lights on and the room is full of furniture, you don't trip because you see. At 19 years old, when I cut my connection with the beings of light, which, again, like I explained before, the beings of light didn't go anywhere. I was the one that closed the door. Then that's why I have to explain this in my book. I have many recounts of the beings of light actually being there. It's just I was the one disconnected. But at that moment, the analogy I give is like I turn off the light. And now imagine yourself walking in a room full of furniture with no lights. You're going to trip with everything. So now it was for me in the next 20 years, I had many, many, many challenges and very difficult challenges. What that gave to me the sense of empathy, compassion, connection, the sense of really sensing and feeling from the inner how it felt to be disconnected. And then going back to that state at 39, I had what I call a big awakening, which when I was 19, the beings of light told me in 20 years. So see, it was like, oh, there's something we are co-creating and writing together. And what happened I don't want to stand too much, but I share with you here what happened is I was in a bus, and I said, I wish none of this was real. And I said to people, watch out what you say, because it can become true. When I said, I wish none of this was real, because I was going through a different kind of hard time. It was the hard time of sensing that I didn't belong. And when I said, I wish none of this was real, Mike, I started to see the constituents that make this bus possible. I started to see the molecular atomic structure of everything. And I started to see how all the particles were held together by sound vibration. I mean, it was just, I entered into this state of almost experiencing, like having a near-death experience or out-of-body experience, entering the realm of the light, but in my complete state of consciousness sitting in this bus. And then at that moment, I saw the dissolution of everything. And it was pretty fast. It was like, and I entered in the realm of the light. And when I came back, I had two questions. I said, how is it possible to forget who we truly are? And when did we stop being one with the whole? And then the being so light said to me, in 20 years, you will understand. And 20 years later, when I had what I call my big awakening, I got the answer. I didn't even know 20 years had passed. I wasn't counting. I forgot all about it. And then there was a series of things that happened that shook me out pretty hard and brought me to wake up, starting with a dark night of the soul. And then I am now, after all this got worked out, I am in my car and I again went back to the full connection with God. And at that moment, I received the questions to those, or the answers to those questions I have asked 20 years before happened. Like time did not even pass. So it's when I realized 20 years had passed, because the answer was one never stopped being one. One never left the source. One just became distracted and seemingly forgot. It's like, oh, so go back. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. But you know what happened when we are in the path of remembrance, Mike? I said, it's like peeling an onion. What happened when you peel an onion? You cry. Because we become very attached. We become attached to the story, to the narrative, to the idea of we are this and that. So now peeling off those layers,
Oh, yeah.
is difficult, and it takes time. It takes time. So I said to people, just be gentle with yourself, just be compassionate. And this is another thing. One day I said to the being so light, wow, peeling off the layers and detaching from all emotional attachments. This takes patience. And I said, patience belongs to time. And it's when I received the direct teaching from the being so light that said, no, patience belongs to God. And they said, patience is a virtue and it has to be cultivated. It needs to be cultivated. So for all of us that are impatient, it's like, learning to cultivate that patience, because it's a virtue. Like we were talking before, this is not an emotion, it's a universal principle, is a virtue. So learning to cultivate our virtues, that is the path of the being that is remembering who we are. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been a beautiful couple of hours here together.
It's been amazing, Mike. Thank you so much for having me here and for inviting me. And it's great seeing you on top of everything. Yes.
I thought that was a super fun weekend that we spent all together, you, me, and Cheryl Costa. We were a funny little team there.
It was amazing. We had such a great time. I just felt like children.
Oh, yeah, and that funny little bed and breakfast with all the gardens and such. Yeah.
It was just amazing. It was really good. So I'm very pleased that we're put in the path of each other, because that way I think we establish these connections, Mike, and the ideas that we can shine, all of us can shine our lights together. I always say one little candle in the wind can flicker. I can't even blown away, but all the candles together form a big flame, and that cannot be put off. So it's like, let's all shine together our lights, be the light and shine the light, purpose and mission. That's it.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much, Mike. This has been amazing. I love sharing with you and with your audience, and anytime.
Great. Well, I would love to have you back.
Thank you.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.
This is Mike, and I'm chiming in after the editing. First, I gotta say, This conversation made me feel so good, and I mean that. I felt truly heartened by sharing and, more importantly, by listening. A few points I need to address. Ingrid hinted at some personal challenges in the interview, and she also wrote about these in her book, and she's not afraid to talk about them publicly. She has suffered terribly from depression for much of her life. This is something I share, and I understand the weight of it. I have talked with other near-death experiencers, and this is common. The trauma of enlightenment is a phrase that gets used within these circles, and this seems a good way to sum it up. Like my recent show with Sharon Hewitt-Rowlett, this show also touches on the overlap with the near-death experience and the UFO contact experience. There are so many similarities in what gets reported within the experiences, and also with the transformation that takes place in the aftermath of these experiences. One example would be that mainstream UFO researchers would say that it is improbable that anyone would get abducted more than once. And this mirrors the skepticism within the community of near-death experience researchers when they hear of someone having more than one near-death experience. But this recurring pattern is common. I should also add that any thoughtful researcher focusing on either of these studies is well aware of these patterns, although a few decades ago it would have been met with incredulity. Thankfully, times have changed. Also, in the talk, I mentioned a book, Jesus and Buddha as Brothers. I looked it up, and the actual title is Going Home, Jesus and Buddha as Brothers. This is a wonderful little book by the late Thich Nhat Hanh, who was a Buddhist monk and author. Now, once again, I will encourage you to check out the YouTube videos in the show notes. These two videos are titled How My NDE Gave Me Access to Beings of Light, Part 1 and 2. These are both highly recommended, and they cover a lot that we did not cover in this interview. Ingrid's book is A Brightly Guided Life, and that's easily available on Amazon. Her homepage is ingridhonkala.com, and that is spelled Ingrid Honkala, IngridHonkala.com. Whew, that was a lot, and there's so much more that I could say. But for now, let me end it like this. Peace and strength, and thank you so much. Bye now. What you just listened to was the YouTube version of the Hidden Experience audio podcast. This show is hosted by Mike Cleland, and that's me, and it is available on most of the popular podcast platforms. Just search out Hidden Experience Audio. And if you want to support the show, you can find it on Patreon, as well as Buy Me a Coffee. This YouTube version has ads, but the audio version is always ad-free. And you can also join my YouTube channel here. Thank you so much for listening, and please support this show.